Here is how to comment during the Frankly Speaking show. On your computer, look to the right of the video. That's your live chat hub. Click the Say Something box at the bottom, type your message, and hit enter. Boom, you're live. On the mobile app, it's just as easy. Tap the live chat button right under the video to open the window. Pro tip, if you're in full screen mode, tap the screen once and hit the chat icon to see messages without leaving the action. Can't type? Check two things. Make sure you're signed in and see if subscribers only mode is on. You might need to sub and wait a few minutes. Keep it respectful, follow the mod's rules, and have fun.
Good day. Good day. Frankly speaking, there's a lot of hand-wringing and finger-pointing following the demolition of more than 20 houses at Cooper's Pen, Trelawny last Tuesday. Frankly speaking, the outturn could have been worse, even though, and possibly because, several men were removed from their homes in the community and detained by the police in what appears to be a clear violation of their rights before the bulldozing started. So now, several families surrounded by uncertainty about where they will live are on the tents getting some government assistance. Frankly speaking, there's a lot of blaming going on and a lot of political partisan foolishness too. Frankly speaking, this is an awful situation, and it offers opportunities for the nation and its political leadership to attend to one of the most vexed issues of Jamaica's history, landlessness, and the most troubling manifestation of the entire independence period and before, squatting or informal settlements. We have with us today as our guest, attorney and MP for Clarendon Southwest, Lothan Cousins, in his capacity as opposition spokesman for land. We are also joined by Nadisha Jones. We had her with us a while ago, and we are having a little bit of difficulties, but we expect to get her back online. Just to say, we sought out a spokesman from the government, but that effort was futile. Welcome to Desmond Richards and Winnie Anderson Brown and our regular panelists. Thanks to you for joining us. And remember, you may send questions and comments for our response by using the procedure outlined earlier or putting them on the space provided on the channel. So, let's get right into it. Tuesday's pre-dawn operation was quite a big one. Up to 200 police and soldiers. Now let me see. We're going here. I'm sorry about that. With about 200 police and soldiers. Many residents say they had no notice and no warning. But we know that this matter has gone to court twice and the people were told to move and asked to move. Ms. Nadisha Jones, is she there with us now, or is she back with us? She was with us earlier. Well, we were talking to Ms. Nadisha Jones, one of those whose house was knocked down, and she was just telling us that yesterday, Dr. Horace Chang visited them and told them to secure their belongings and move away from the place. I'd really love to get her voice in saying that, but she was saying that they felt really distant from everything. They felt out of it, and they feel like nobody cares about them. And she was making a point to Winnie, but I don't know what happened there. So let's leave it at that. If we can get Miss Jones back, Joshua, then you can help us with that. Okay. And is Mr. Cousins with us now? Mr. Cousins? Yes, Mr. Cousins is with us. We're not going to be seeing him on camera. Yes, Mr. Cousins, you're muted.
Yeah.
Good, sir. Good afternoon, Mr. Cousins. Mr. Cousins, give us an update on your understanding, sir. Because I hear you have been saying to people that the government should know that this was possible and coming that way. Go ahead, Mr. Cousins. And I'm just telling all viewers that we are not going to be able to see you at the moment. Mr. Cousins? Mr. Cousins, are you muted? You're not muted. We're not hearing you. Oh, wow. Mr. Cousins?
He was still muted a while ago, so.
He's not hearing us.
He was still muted a while ago. I'm not sure if he's still muted.
It would appear so.
Well,
he was muted a while ago still. Yeah.
Mr. Cousins? Lawton Cousins? All right. I suspect Joshua is going to try and get him connected. I don't know what is happening there. Desmond.
Right. Try join us here. Mr. Cousins is here. Go ahead, Mr. Cousins.
All right, Mr. Cousins.
Jesus, peace, Mr.
You're
Cousins.
asking a while ago.
Hold on.
Yeah, we lost
him. Desmond, you give us your take on the demolition last week. You know, this is one of your pet peeves. You know that anybody who has watched this program before has heard you over and over making the point about landlessness. Mr. Cousins, when you are ready, you can speak because we can't pick you up.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we
Yes,
can.
sir. Okay. Right. Yes,
Perfect. Sorry about that. I'm not sure what transpired, but I was saying good evening to you, good evening to the panelists, and good evening to the viewers.
Good evening.
Right. So, Mr. Cousins, give us your perspective on what happened, Mr. President.
Well, we went on the ground in Cooper's Pen, myself, the leader of opposition, and the opposition spokesperson on human rights.
Right.
Yeah.
Human
so
rights.
we spoke to the residents and we also consulted the history of this matter, because you have to look at the history of this matter to get a deeper appreciation of the full picture of what is really taking place here. Now, there's so much to digest and to unravel. So if you would like, you just can direct some questions and I'll respond accordingly.
Okay. You seem to have suggested during the week that the government ought to have been aware of what was happening out there, at least illegal positions and so forth. Is that where you stand?
Absolutely. So the Court of Appeal delivered a judgment in April 29 of 2016. That judgment was a ruling against the Minister of Housing. The government would have received that judgment and would have known that this matter was at a finality in terms of some decision making. Now, the very same government has at its disposal the option to appeal to the Privy Council and chose not to appeal to the Privy Council. Right? So obviously this is a matter that had a live issue, and there are other matters that I will discuss as we go on. For example, you have to look at our civil procedure rules, and our civil procedure rules in Jamaica speak to a 6-year limitation on one's ability to execute an order for repossession, right? Or an order to repossess property. Outside of that, the claimant must go back to the court and seek the court's approval before they can proceed with any action. So in
So you're saying,
2016,
No.
Mr. Cousins, that they had no they had no right to take any action, whether the action that they took was humane or even legal. They had no right to take any action. Is that what you are saying?
let us be very careful.
Yeah.
You
Yes.
asked a specific question about knowledge or the likelihood of knowing that this was going to happen. So the starting point is 2016, which is the end of the Court of Appeal matter. The issue of recovery of possession became a live issue. We are now in 2026. So if they were to be relying on that order from 2016, then it would mean that they would have to have approached the court in recent times, because that is a stale order as per the civil procedure rules.
Mhm.
So it is either a stale order was executed, which is illegal, or the court was approached in recent times and an extension granted. I have perused the court registry
But tell us,
documents. I have done a search of the court registry, and I am not seeing any application from New Falmouth Resort for an extension of that order.
but Mr. Cousins, what the government should have done in 2016 when the court ruled
They
against
should
them?
have appealed to the Privy Council. They should have appealed to the Privy Council, because when one looks at the judgment, the judges erred in their interpretation of public interest and what is in the public's interest. They applied a very narrow interpretation to it, and therefore, when one looks at the authorities coming out of the Privy Council from as far back as the early 1900s, it is clear that any appeal to the Privy Council would have had significant merit. I'm not going to speak to the likelihood of success, but there was merit in taking the matter to the Privy Council.
So at this stage, what are the legal steps that the government can take?
So as I discussed earlier, there are a number of issues that we must ventilate. So the first thing is, you have to remember that the order for repossession or the recovery of possession matter was against 99 named respondents and 99 occupants. So it was for the entire parcel of land. It was in respect of 99 named occupants. No, that was in 2016. My understanding when I visited and was there on the ground is that new occupants have since taken over spots on the land. Now, if that is true, then the order against the 99 cannot be used against the new occupants. And that is why the court says that you must not sit on your rights. So if these new occupants are subject of the demolition order, they now have a cause of action against the developer for malicious destruction of property, as well as damages for losses suffered. The order for repossession can only be executed against the 99 named respondents or occupants at the time the order was made.
Okay.
Mr. Cousins, just listening to you would suggest to somebody who was thinking of owning a piece of land that there's a whole set of jeopardy involved. There's a whole set of obligations almost against the landowner, and the illegal settler.
Let me fix that. Let me fix that argument here once and for all.
Yes, sir.
It takes 12 years for you to dispossess a private landowner, 6 years for you to dispossess a public,
Government.
the crown or the government.
Yes.
In all the jurisdictions where this law emanated, that that number of years has been reduced. So in England, it is 10 years. So any argument suggesting that there's a great burden on the landowner when compared to other jurisdictions is not true. In fact, in Jamaica, we have greater protection. The reality is that many of us want to hoard up land, own land, not take care of the land, and then expect that it will be in the same condition that we left it in. That's not how life operates.
So
And as I
let's
said,
so let's go back.
every country in the world, every country, including America, has laws that deal with adverse possession. The United States of America. So are we going to say that it is wrong in those countries, but not it is not wrong in those countries, but wrong in Jamaica? Come on, man. Let's
No, but
move
just
on.
listening to you an attorney, explaining the maze that is involved in people who have gone to court, and that, in other words, it's not enough to just go to court and get an order, and you have to deal with the order within a certain time. And if other people have come onto the land, that order wouldn't necessarily apply to them. But it's your
be
land.
clear. Let us be clear.
Yes.
The civil procedure rules does not limit the 6 years.
Sorry. Let's stay there for a second, Mr. Cousins. If I try again, set up again.
The civil procedure rules does not limit it to 6 years for land only. It is 6 years in any instance. It could be recovery of a car. It could be recovery of anything at all that has come to the region. Right? It could be recovery of debt. So it is not unlimited, but it says
Getting a bad feedback there again, Mr. Cousins.
Yes.
I don't know if you moved. I don't
No,
know if you moved from where you
no,
were.
I've not moved, but I'm hearing some different microphones.
Yes,
like
Desmond, can you also check your background and see whether it's coming from your side, Desmond? As I get a sense it's coming from one of us. Yeah. Okay, Mr. Cousins. Yes, I understand that. So let's get back into Couples Pen. Your
Yes.
advice, Desmond was asking, what can the government do? What can be done for these people? What can be done?
Simply put,
Okay.
let us stop beating around the bush. There is sufficient precedent, recent precedent, if the government is serious, that they can apply to treat with Cooper's pen. Right? Let me just make this clear. The issue with Cooper's pen concerns 9 acres of what is reported by one of the shareholders today in the paper to be 750 acres.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people don't understand that we are dealing with just probably 0.03% of the total land that is owned by Falmouth Resorts Limited, or New Falmouth Resorts Limited. The challenge is in 2007, if one looks at the title, the Northern Coastal Highway Improvement Project that spanned from Negril all the way to Port Antonio, that opened up a lot of land between Priory, Runaway Bay, Discovery Bay, Miami Bay, through Ochorius back to Port Antonio. That project was completed by P.J. Pattison. The road that takes you from Negril through Montego Bay into Trelawny, into St. Anne, into St. Mary was done then. A large chunk of the land was sold to the Commissioner of Lands to facilitate the construction of that highway. The highway severed that 9 acres and had it on the right-hand side of the road coming from Montego Bay, the
Yeah.
left-hand side coming from Montego Bay, and all of the land on the right-hand side coming from Montego Bay, heading to St. Anne, is that said parcel of land. These residents were there decades before the road was even constructed. These residents were given assurances by who was considered to be the legitimate owner back in the 80s, but then some issues came with the title, and there are issues before the court around this very same land by the Dobson family, who are claiming that the Administrator General Department wrongfully transferred the property to New Falmouth Resort. So this is a very complicated matter. The the New Falmouth Resort, headed by Mr. Chisholm, did not express any interest in the land that he owned until the highway cut it off. And on the left-hand side, coming from Montego Bay, the hotel started to go up, and the hotel started to buy up the land, and then he started valuing the land. But by that
Yes,
time,
and for people who are not sure, we are talking about the area near
Royalton Hotel,
Royalton Hotel,
right
and before
across
that,
from the entrance of Royalton Hotel.
yes, okay, that's
So
right. Just giving
there
people a
wasn't
reference.
any appetite for the land until that time. Then you realize now that the strip of land, 9.5 acres, is now on the side where the most valuable assets are being placed. So now the residents become a problem. So we fast forward now between 2009, when the first order for recovery of possession was granted, and then we fast forward to 2011 when processing similar. And it might sound political, but you can realize I am focusing on the legality of the issue. But I'm going to also point out that in 2011, the residents approached the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister instructed the Minister of Housing to declare the area an area under the Housing Act. And that declaration was done in 2012, and that is how the caveat was lodged.
And that declaration under the Housing Act meant
It was
what?
under the Housing Act. The government of the day started to negotiate with Mr. Chisholm. But Mr. Chisholm kept moving the goalpost in terms of the value. In fact, at one point in time, residents formed a providential society and transferred $3 million that is still in an account right now to pay for the land. But every time they're ready to proceed, Mr. Chisholm gave a different price for the land. Right? So we fast forward to 2014, when negotiations seem to have broken down somewhat. Then the Minister of Housing said, all right, I'm going to post a notice in the Gazette that we are going to compulsory acquire the land because negotiations are not going according to plan. That is how the matter now came before the court in terms of the housing minister asking for a stay of proceedings on the basis that it was going to acquire the land through compulsory acquisition. So the caveat is a different matter from the case before the Court of Appeal. Because the caveat came in 2012. The Court of Appeal matter was launched in 2014.
So, Mr. Cousins, I know the legal history is important, but the action taken on Tuesday, I'd love you to describe that action, not what took place, but in terms of the law.
Well, you know, what is interesting is that everybody is now denying that they were involved in this exercise. The state is denying that it was involved, yet we have reports from the residents that there was a helicopter hovering above their heads.
Yes.
And at 3 a.m., young men, all able-bodied young men, who possibly were seen as as defenders, or would likely have defended the more vulnerable residents, were removed, taken
And taken
to
to
the
Falmouth
Falmouth
police
police
station.
station and processed, and they were not released until the demolition exercise was completed. So, as far as I am seeing this entire process, it was rushed, and one must ask questions because I have an idea, but I cannot say this is definitive. But if you are purchasing a property with occupants on the property, and the agreement for sale, for example, hypothetically speaking, says that you must get based on possession, what will you do? So we need to start
Okay.
thinking.
Yes, sir. I'm going to come to that theory you have, but I'm going to ask Joshua if he can just play for us, Joshua, the response by
The
the
incident,
Prime Minister, who's the Minister of Housing, by the way. Go ahead, Joshua. Yes.
the incident is quite concerning, and many of the images that we have seen are disturbing. My heart goes out to the families who have been dislocated. I see a particular image of a newborn and the mother being dislocated. These are the tragedies, and it is one thing that history does is to repeat itself. And I am committed to ensure that our history is not repeated, which is why I am unequivocal and very clear in not endorsing squatting and the illegal occupation of land. I do intend to address the specific matter when I have the full details of the matter. The matter is quite complex and it involves court rulings for which I need to be properly advised on those court rulings before I speak. I do intend to, however, address the matter. As soon as the matter occurred and it was brought to my attention, I had no prior knowledge of it. No, none of our ministers, certainly not the member of parliament. I got a call very early in the morning, quite surprised, and immediately we mobilized resources from ODPEM and the Ministry of Labor and Social Security to assist because technically it was a disaster. And we have been able to respond in the humanitarian crisis that has been created. There is a longer term response that is necessary. So, whatever the government does, it has to address the issue of informality, and we can't be too mouth about it. We have to speak straight about it. Squatting is wrong, informal settlement is not encouraged, but yes, every single Jamaican should have equal opportunity to get access to land and housing. We will have to find ways to support those families who are impacted. But whatever our response is, we have to be careful that we don't set a precedence that is not sustainable. Because whatever we do now, everybody is going to expect that it is done going forward. So, which is why we are being very careful in preparing a response that is sustainable. And it will be corrected. In the same way we have developed this program, which every week I'm delivering a home to someone who is in need. It is the same way that we will develop a program to address squatter communities, irregularly settled communities, formalize them, regularize them, and prevent further squatting and informal settlement.
Okay. Thanks. Thanks. So I think we heard that Desmond. I think we're still hearing some background noise in terms of Desmond. Mr. Cousins, Desmond, you're muted
Yes.
now, but we were hearing some earlier. All right, fine. Mr. Cousins, would you like to respond to that? The Prime Minister saying wasn't aware of anything there as soon as he heard and what he did and his outlook for where this should go, the precedent.
Very interesting. The fact is that I heard you can't be too mouthed about it. The word disaster being utilized. That's true. There's some truths to what he said. The reality is this though. Just last year we had an election, and these were the very same communities that as it believe, even at Cooper's Pen, you can confirm with the residents that MP Tova Hamilton pitched a large tent and was there for most of the day with those residents, right? So you see, part of the problem we're having is the hypocrisy when it suits us. When it's election time,
But the two political sides, and this is not just weighing the thing and balancing it. The two political sides have appealed all along, including the last election, to so-called squatter settlements, informal settlements, because they find large numbers of people and large numbers of poor people who vote for the political parties, Mr. Cousins.
Thank you very much. And one political side has always maintained from the days of Norman Manley that it was its intention and has taken active steps now through Operation Pride, you name it, they can go through the history. It is impatient of debate that one side is more in favor of resetting that wrong that took place from the days of emancipation. So it's not because I am PNP. And people tell you, I don't operate like that. But let us be clear. We put forward clear policies to fix this situation once and for all during the last election cycle. I propose the reduction from 65 years to 25 years for crown land, right? Which is the standard across the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth jurisdiction.
You're talking about adverse possession now.
Of course, because when our ancestors were free, they were given the land. Let us pretend as if we started on an equal footing. We did not.
But Mr. Cousins, I've just stopped you there now because we speak of this all the time. The settlements across the country. What your suggestion? I did not hear any suggestion over the last election cycle that would radically transform the squatter settlement or the informal settlements across the country.
You obviously did not listen to my presentation.
I listened to a lot of presentations, including yours, and
yes, and that 25 years is significant because you know what is significant. Yes,
Mr. Cousins, there are over 1 million people living in informal or squatter settlements. That's what former Minister of Finance Omar Davies said more than 10 years ago.
Well, I can speak to the survey that was done, the most recent survey a few years ago, which placed the number at about 700,000. Okay?
700,000.
I was born in 1985. I'm 41 years of age. I don't want to go into any. When Omar Davies was finance minister, I was in primary school. So I am from a different generation. So let's not go there. I am simply saying I propose, right, a radical transformational program by reducing the 25 years within everybody within the scope, and then you give them the right to go and apply for them title and create an ownership society. Many of the people that we know are not the first initial occupants of these lands, so let's stop talking like they're criminals. They came there based on the fact that their grandparents were there and their great-grandparents were there. So when you talk about fucking and pretending as if everything was on an equal footing and we all started separate corridors, I wonder if that powerful Spanish town that the Prime Minister grew up in was owned by his mother or she was paying rent. Let us be clear, man. And cut the foolishness and just get straight to the issues at hand, which is a land that emanating out of slavery. And that many of our Jamaicans are now being forced out of land because the lands are becoming more valuable. Because there's a lot of appetite from overseas investors And now there's a cost of living crisis because people barely can afford the houses that are being constructed.
Yes, and but Mr. Cousins, nothing is new about that increase in the land values because of the greater interest and so forth. Or for people over the years, I mean, here on the North Coast where I live, over the years, interest in pieces of land and MPs have had to resettle people, move people off lands. Different housing agencies have functioned in helping people to get lands. But largely, the issue of squatting, the issue of informal settlements has expanded. I heard the mayor from Trelawny, and I was speaking with him myself this week, speaking about an increasing number of informal settlements in Trelawny itself, all over the parish.
You
And
know why? That is as a result. That is as a result of the increase in hotel construction. There's an increase in hotel construction. The workers are leaving other parishes. They are coming into these parishes. They can't live in these gated communities that are they are not being paid enough. So the reality is that the increase in construction of hotels is to be blamed. I'm not surprised by that utterance or that reality. It is the truth. The reality is that most of the valuable land in Trelawny was used for sugarcane production. Cane is
Mr.
dead.
Cousin, Mr. Cousin,
Yeah.
Mr. Cousin, when I will agree with you, but I am speaking about my lifetime, to my lifetime. I will agree with you that the PNP, People's National Party government, over the years, has made more efforts to deal with landlessness in Jamaica. But my question is, when the JLP and the PNP, the two parties that have ruled the country since 1944, are going to get serious to deal with landlessness to black Jamaicans in Jamaica, when is that going to be done?
Well, for the first time in decades, we have had a minister of land. And I remember saying to the newly minted Minister of Land and Settlement and Typing that he should tell me thanks. Because up until last year, May, when I made my presentation, the Ministry of Land was subsumed under the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation without a minister that was in charge of it. That is the reality, right? So we have made our positions clear. I have made my position clear, right? And the party, my position is the party's position as the party has adopted based on our research. Now, you're asking when we are going to get serious? We got serious when it came about with the Compulsory Acquisition Act, when Norman Manley used the various provisions of the law to take back most of the lands that are now settlements that was once part of fens. So let us be realistic. Maybe we have not gone far enough. And that is why I propose the radical amendment to the Limitation of Actions Act and Registration of Titles Act to bring the number down to 25, which is the standard in the Western world and in the United Kingdom. And once we
what was
do
your
that,
proposal? What was your proposal on adverse possession for private people?
my proposal was for the 12 years to remain, even though it was reduced by 10 to 10 years in every other jurisdiction. We had proposed to let that stay at 12. And that is well known a position that we've clearly articulated. Our
But you
only
know,
bone of contention, based on the research that we did and the squatter surveys, is that more than 90% of those persons who we call squatters were living on crown land.
This
that's
is a
what the
good
survey
time to take
the
this
survey that
comment,
you recently
Franklin.
referenced.
I'm sorry,
Sorry, Winnie. The
Franklin.
survey.
Yes.
Go ahead, Winnie. Go ahead.
Yes, it's time to take this comment from Delio Roberts. if I get that right. Some Jamaicans forget where they are coming from. How many Jamaicans grow up on land owned by their parents? That's a comment. Yeah.
Mr. Cousins,
Yes.
I
No,
wanted to ask you, were you
let me.
saying that 90% of the lands that the settlements that constitute informal settlements are on crown lands?
Mostly crown lands, yeah. But let me make this position clear too, because there's this misunderstanding about the torrent system and how it operates. There's two systems of ownership of land in Jamaica. There's registered land and there's unregistered land. So you see, most of Jamaicans, we even have another 300,000 Jamaicans who don't have title but have taxes paper. And are being dragged before the court by the Inland Revenue Department to pay taxes for land that they don't have a title for, because it is a recognized system of ownership where you survey, you get a valuation number, and that valuation number determines the amount of taxes you pay. It's over 300,000 per Jamaicans outside of those living on squatter settlements who are actually living on land that they don't have a piece of paper for outside of that survey diagram.
But you
And
wouldn't
the
call them
valuation
you wouldn't call them squatters or informal settlers.
No, you would not call them, but I was just
Okay.
making an additional point. See, I'm making an additional point that we need to understand that there are two recognized legal systems of ownership in Jamaica.
Yes. Point well taken. But my colleague Desmond Richards asked you earlier when are we going to get serious, and I wasn't impressed by the answer, Mr. Cousins, because you are saying you have got serious already. Your party has got serious already. But even the statement that I referred to earlier by Dr. Davies was talking about a problem which was monumental. The number of people who are in these settlements, and as you go about your business, whether there are hotels around, whether there are private people seeking, you see expanded squatter settlements.
If I may, the greatest barrier to regularizing squatter settlements is sometimes the survey, the cost of the survey. It is a significant cost. And the government oftentimes doesn't want to bear that burden. And I don't know, but I made this presentation, and I'm sorry I just say you're not impressed yet, but you need to look at the presentation properly. Because we spoke about the use of technology to fast track surveys. We are relying on an old survey system with a limited number of surveyors in Jamaica, when technology has far advanced beyond that point. We spoke about the use of GPS. We spoke about the use of drones. We spoke about using the satellites to do some pointers so that you can get a more accurate survey. Until we have improved the system of surveying land in Jamaica, the issue of sorting out settlements will lag behind. Because you cannot regularize a community without identifying the boundaries of each individual's land. You have to remember, that the issue of boundaries on where land is concerned is something that is even documented in the Bible from the Jeremiah. It started with Jeremiah. And so people call it Jeremiah's deed. Right? So you have to look at how I think the roots and perches and that was how land used to be. And sometimes from that tree to that tree, down to this, over to this, more or less.
Yes.
That's where we're coming from.
Mr. Cousins, may I ask you, do you think that to make a serious assault on squatter settlements or informal settlements or this landless issue, that the two major political parties need to have an understanding and possibly more than that, an agreement about how this might be undertaken over time, since it's obviously such a thorny issue. That's why it has not yet been tackled.
Ideally, you're speaking from an idealistic perspective. It's quite utopia. But if one party is saying these are criminals, the other party is saying, look at the history, let us fix it, then there's no way you can go from there. Right? And the problem that we're having is that most of these large landowners support one party, right? And therefore that party has to pander to their interests. And that is where the problem starts. So you can sound like you want to them because them give you money for election. That not gonna help Jamaica move forward.
Wow.
So you are
And
saying that you are not the, you are saying that you are not the defenders of the landholding class.
You need exactly, but it is well known. Let us not fool ourselves. My born grew up on seed. Down where I'm from in Clarendon, no born and grow in Clarendon. Me know it. Anybody born all over the country know who the large landowners support one political party. And the average people support the other one. And then use the money to catch the rest of the people then.
So you don't believe that we talk about it all the time, but an agreement on an issue like this, as an issue so big, so huge, and so important, because Mr. Cousins, I believe, and that's what I have talked about this all the time, I believe that if we dealt with this matter of informal settlement, it would, apart from transforming a whole heap of communities, it would help transform the Jamaican economy,
Because it creates an ownership society. I spoke about that last year in my presentation.
Yes, I did see that.
It creates an ownership society. And what it does is many of the persons we know that are well off use their properties for collateral, for security. The bank is going to take your property and lend you 500,000 because the property value 1.5 million. But you can turn that 500,000, right, into probably 5 million in no time if you have the right business acumen. So the security that comes with the land and the fact that you can approach a financial institution and get financing, it is going to radically, and the words that I used last year was that it would be the greatest transfer of wealth to the ordinary Jamaican people. And at a point in time when we're talking about reparations, why are we talking about reparations when the crown, the same person we're going to asking for reparations, own all of these lands that the people live on, that we can just transfer and give them right now and call it a day? That is reparation. There's no greater reparation than that. And the issue of landlessness is
why
not
the politicians can't see it?
the issue
Why
of
the politicians can't see this simple thing?
I don't hear you.
I said, why the politicians can't see this simple?
When people say politician, when they refer to me, I tell them that I am a representative of the people. So maybe that's why I see it a different way. Because a politician comes with certain things and certain connotation and certain stigma that I from as like a boy, I don't really love it. But because my born and grew up Clarendon, I come in at the thing to help my people at Clarendon, and that is it. Because I had a thriving legal practice. And I have my family business is well known in central Jamaica. So it's not like we came into politics for anything. But let us go back to the Caribbean and look at Trinidad and Tobago, for example. Because I like to come with facts, if you realize. I don't come and just talk. In Trinidad and Tobago, they were confronted with very same issues that we are confronted with. You know what they came up with? They said every single Trinidadian who was living on what you call squatter land, because they acknowledge the transgressions of the past, they give them what you call a certificate of comfort. You can research it. And that certificate of comfort is what you use now to move towards regular ownership, but you give them something to protect them. And then you put together a program now to transfer the land to them. Trinidad does that. Trinidad has done that years. The thing is that once you have identified these persons and you give them that certificate of comfort, you then ensure that you survey every piece of land. You have Google Maps now, You have Google Earth. So you can monitor your land from Google Earth, If you are building your house now, all you need to go on is go on the Google Earth, and look on your property, you can see the transformation, So for persons who own land to complain, private owners, that people might cut on their land, it simply means they have no interest in the land. Because you can go on your computer, on your phone, go into Google Earth, zone into your property, and see if a house is being constructed on your property. Is it a reality?
Yes, but Mr. Cousins, it's not that they might have no interest, apart from what they might not know. They expect that their rights to the property should be protected by the state.
It is protected it is protected by the Registration of Titles Act, and it is protected by the Limitation of Actions Act. So to say it is not protected is not true. In fact, they have greater protection than every other country in the Commonwealth, including England, because it is 10 years in those countries, and it is 12 in our same way. So to say there's no protection is not true. It is false. So let us stop perpetrating that lie.
So
it's a lie.
We want to come back to Cooper's Pen, Mr. Cousins. What are you saying would be the next step for those people, or should be the next step for government? If you were
if I were advising the Cooper's Pen residents, I would advise them to seek proper legal representation, because there are a number of issues to be tried. One, if the order was still, then the demolition is an illegality. I'm not seeing anything to suggest that the order was extended as per the civil procedure rules. Two, those residents that came onto the land after 2016 or even 2010, to be honest, because the first order for repossession was 2010. And if residents came on and were not included in that application, then those residents now can file for adverse possession. And if they were negatively impacted by the demolition exercise, they now have a cause of action for damages, for the destruction to their property, and they also can file a criminal complaint, because that is malicious destruction of property. The law in Jamaica is settled. Trespassers have rights. That is from the Privy Council. Not because someone trespasses onto your property gives you the right to shoot them. You can still be charged for murder. That is settled law.
And those men who were detained, they too can take some court action. Am I right, Mr.?
As it relates to the likelihood of success, that is debatable, because we don't know whether or not there was actually warrants that were executed. So I don't want to pronounce on that, because if they have lawful warrants and they were detained based pursuant to the warrant for processing, then the law also says they have up to 72 hours. So whilst I am appalled, and I'm very, I don't want to make mention of Green Bay and them things, because these things kind of take us back there, right? But the reality is that when we see the state being utilized to suppress the rights of the people, it is alarming and concerning. And I think where I find it most curious to date, and nobody has addressed the suggestion, the local improvement communities. It was used at Red Hills Road to protect the voters there, because I'm saying the voters there, deliberately.
Use that Red Hills Road for the, in Mr. Samuda's constituency.
Yes.
85,
Samuda's
85
Mr. Samuda's
and it was
constituency.
2016. So it's a recent thing, fairly recent under this current administration. So
Yes,
what
but if you don't know,
separates
if you don't know that, if you don't know that people are about to take the action, then you can't take any action. In other words, the government is saying that
the government did not know about Red Hills Road if we're going to accept that. The residents stood up and they blocked it. One of the things a lot of people don't realize about Cooper's Pen is that the demolition exercise in Cooper's Pen is a fraction of Cooper's Pen. There are about 5 times more houses there that were not yet demolished. So
well, according to what's on the ground, sorry, Mr. Cousins, according to what's on the ground, there were 40 more houses to be demolished.
Way more than that.
Here.
Way more than that based on my count.
Okay, but people on the ground have told me that at least 40 more.
Yes, so there's way more than that because we're talking about a fraction of the amount of houses that we saw. So when I made when I made that suggestion, I made it and I was very clear. Listen back to the clip. I said, as it relates to those not yet demolished, that this act should be invoked to prevent any further demolition.
Yeah.
Because if you did it,
Mr. Cousins, as the man responsible for land on your side, are you able to say as well, as the Prime Minister said in that clip that you are not supporting and you are against squatting and informal settlements?
I am not going to say that I am not. I am against it, and I'll tell you why. I am an attorney at law. I am an officer of the court. It's a provision in law. There are provisions in law that allow persons with squatters' rights who have lived on land for a certain number of years to legally acquire title. So why would I say I don't support it? I am not bigger than the law. I am an officer of the court. And if someone comes to me and presents certain information to me that suggests that they are legally entitled now to apply as per the law, I cannot look at them and say, don't apply because I don't support squatting. Let us be realistic, no man. Why does these laws exist in the first place? The Prime Minister is
just that, you know, it's not just whether you are an attorney. Mr. Cousins, I can understand an attorney might be taking a particular position. I'm just saying that when people in Jamaica say politics and politicians encourage squatter settlements to organize their votes and organize garrisons and so forth, and I am asking you whether you have an interest in preventing squatter settlements from developing because they have some particular.
I have an interest in what I own. And what I own, I'll prevent it. And I'll use the technologies available to prevent it. Right? I am simply saying this, that if the Prime Minister is not being hypocritical and wants to be fair, pass a law about back. Remember, you know, universal adult suffrage, you know. One of the key tenets of us imposing adult suffrage was that it was only persons who own land could vote up to that point in time. Yeah. So if you want to go back there, let's go back there then. Pass a law that they shouldn't vote. Since we have a problem about politicians organizing the votes, let's go back to the days before adult suffrage. How that sound?
That's not a viable alternative.
Do you think the politicians
That's
my comment.
And I have to say thank you very much for helping us going back into the history of Cooper's Pen to hear your thinking, the thinking of your party. And we really thank you for spending the time with us.
You're most welcome. You're most welcome.
That's our show for today. We take note of the start of the Jamaica Teachers Association Conference at Ocean's Coral Spring Resort tomorrow through Wednesday. On Monday, Lasagna Harrison will be proclaimed president. So you will soon be hearing a new name as president. She will be, this is her second time around. Thanks to our guests, thanks to Mr. Cousins. And Nadisha Jones, I want to thank her because she was on with us before we went on air and she had some difficulties. So she ended the conversation. Thanks to our viewers and listeners for joining us. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Also, remember you may watch the podcast again at your leisure by clicking that link or going to the Frankly Speaking Jamaica YouTube channel, episode 222. That's this episode. Thanks to Desmond Richards and Winnie Anderson Brown, and to Joshua Black, co-producer and graphic artist. On behalf of all of us, I'm Franklin McKnight. Until then.
The lights go up, the mics are lit. We're feeling that energy, that Sunday drive. Whether you're here while the clock is ticking or catching the replay, the plot is thickening. From the very first word to the final